Greetings! My name is James Williams.
And I'm Hailey Buxton.
And today we're going to be talking about social teaching strategies for individuals with autism from the anime community. I am an adult with autism, and I have been attending anime conventions for a little over 10 years now. I have also been hosting panels on autism awareness at anime conventions for a little over 5 years, and have been either volunteering or staffing anime conventions for about 8 years now. And during that time, while working and being a part of the anime community, I've gotten to observe and witness many different strategies that people within the anime community use to teach proper social skills to their members with autism and other social issues. The anime community has many members on the autism spectrum. They also have a lot of members who have different social issues. And because of this, people within the anime fan community have had to figure out ways to help those attendees be included, but also behave properly within the context of the anime community. Because the anime community, just like any other social community, has its own set of social rules and expectations. And many of those rules and expectations are similar to rules and expectations that are commonly taught by special education teachers to students with autism in special education settings. And indeed, as I saw how the anime community helped their members with autism understand the social rules and what constituted appropriate versus inappropriate behavior within their community, I realized that many of the strategies that they used had similarities to some of the strategies that I personally underwent when I was in social skills classes as a student in special education myself growing up with autism, and that there were many strategies within the autism community that could be beneficial for teachers and professionals and even parents to be aware of, that could be useful to help individuals with autism improve their social functioning. The anime community also has many accommodations that they automatically, in many cases, implement at their conventions to help those individuals as well. Now, it is pretty much now common knowledge that if you're teaching a student with autism in a classroom, or you're a parent of a child with autism, you can't automatically assume that your child or the student you're working with is automatically going to know the unspoken or unwritten social rules in a social setting. Rules that the researcher Dr. Brenda Smith-Miles refers to as the hidden curriculum. And as a result, many educators and parents spend a lot of time helping either their children or the children they are teaching understand and learn about those social expectations. At an anime convention, that inability to pick up those unspoken rules is acknowledged. When you go to an anime convention and you register and you get your booklet doesn't just tell you the schedule of the convention, it doesn't just tell you who's going to be at the convention, it also gives you a list of what all the social rules and expectations are at the convention. So if you have autism and you don't pick up unspoken rules naturally and at an anime convention, you don't have to worry. The rules are all written down inside the booklet, along with the ramifications of what can happen if you break them. Indeed, many of the rules that are enforced at anime conventions have similar equivalents to many rules that teachers teach in social skills classes. And even when there are rules in the anime community that are distinct to that community, understanding those rules, especially when you are an adult with autism, can sometimes give you a greater understanding as to why certain social rules exist and their origins. I can tell you, as an adult with autism, when I started working anime conventions and I had to learn various social rules and expectations that were distinct to that community, I got a greater understanding as to why certain social rules existed in certain settings I didn't have before. I saw how, regardless of the social setting I was in, virtually most unspoken rules had one thing in common. They weren't created just to confuse me as an autistic person. They were created so that the people within a specific social setting could feel comfortable together. So, what are a few examples of rules within the anime community that are enforced or are taught? Well, one example that has a very distinct parallel to a social rule that is very commonly taught within the anime fan community and also within a special education setting is a rule and a meme and a belief: cosplay is not consent. Now, for those of you who aren't part of the anime community, you're probably wondering, okay, what does cosplay mean? Well, right now, Hailey and I are cosplaying. You've probably noticed that we're dressed up in various costumes. I'm dressed up as the villain James from Pokemon, which shares my actual name, James. And at anime conventions, I actually go by the stage name James as James because right now my name is James and I am dressed up as James, a Team Rocket villain from Pokemon. And your costume is, Hailey?
I'm dressed up as Lily, one of the main... If you play Pokemon Sun and Moon, you should know who Lily is. Or seen the Sun and Moon anime, then you should know who Lily is. Anyway, she takes care of a Pokemon, Cosmog. Pew, pew! Oh, shut it, Nebby. And, yeah.
Thank you, Hailey. Now, at an anime convention, when you are dressed up in a costume, you are said to be cosplaying. It's really a fancy word for saying, I am dressing up as an anime character. Now, some cosplayers go further and actually pretend to be that character and adapt the mannerisms of that character as well. But, although a cosplayer may be acting out a certain character, what does cosplay is not consent mean? Well, it is actually a social rule that is very similar to a rule that's very commonly taught in special education settings: personal space. I'm sure if you're a teacher watching this, you've probably come across at least one student with autism who had a hard time understanding personal space. And I'm sure some of the parents watching this might have had a child who struggled with personal space too. Well, cosplay is not consent is similar to, though is a rule that's similar to the personal space rules taught in special education. The idea behind cosplay is not consent is, just because I'm dressed up as James doesn't mean that I've consented to people violating my personal space. Just because Hailey might really like the character James doesn't mean she has the right to just give me a big hug without making sure it's okay with me first. And just because Hailey's dressed up as Lily from Pokemon and has that cute little Pokemon in her hand doesn't mean that I have the right to hug her without asking her first. Cosplay is not consent also means that Hailey and I do have the right to ask each other, and if we consent, we can hug each other. And don't worry, Hailey and I prearranged to hug each other before the presentation started.
Disclaimer!
And the cosplay is not consent lesson is a lesson that has helped many people with autism in the anime community understand the importance of personal space and boundaries among other people. Because what it does is it helps people with autism understand, who understand anime, hey, just because someone's cosplaying my favorite character does not mean I have the right to hug them, I have the right to kiss them, I have the right to do any of that without asking them first. But it is okay to ask first. And in fact, anime conventions do make it okay for people to ask for consent in a safe environment. Another social strategy that is often implemented at anime conventions is reinforcement of following rules, often by the ability to make friends. See, one big thing about anime conventions is that people who go to anime conventions, many of them don't have a lot of friends. Many of them are the outcasts in their schools. They're the outcasts at their work. And so at anime conventions, a lot of people will go to an anime convention just to make a new friend that likes anime in a similar way that they do. And at anime conventions, there is a whole set of rules that are in place so that people who want to come to an anime convention to make friends can do so within that controlled environment, following that set of rules. And the reinforcement is, in many cases, if those rules are followed by both parties, when a friendship is formed, oftentimes a friendship is made and the friendship lasts. There's people I have made friends with at anime conventions 5-6 years ago, I am still friends with to this day. Another social rule that has parallels to rules that are commonly taught within special education is the concept of making sure that you don't act in certain ways that represent violence. So, although there are many characters in anime that often have, weapons and all that, you cannot bring an actual prop that looks like a weapon or a firearm to an anime convention. Similar to our safety rules now in schools for obvious reasons. And you cannot strike any pose that might not appear safe in front of other people at a common area of an anime convention. In fact, one of the things that cosplayers learn is that even if they are dressed up as a villainous character, that doesn't give them the right to act like a villain. Just because you're dressed up as a bad guy doesn't mean you have the right to be a bad guy. So like my character is a villain character from Pokemon, and one thing that my character does in Pokemon is he's always trying to steal
Ash Ketchum's Pikachu.
And although he almost always fails, if I'm at an anime convention, I don't have the right to take away people's stuffed Pikachus just because I am dressed up as James the Pokemon villain. So a lot of the safety rules that are implemented in our schools that some kids with special needs struggle with mirror some of the many safety rules that are also implemented at anime conventions. Now, not only does the anime community have social strategies and parallel social rules in place, but there are specific scenarios within anime and anime-related series and films that can also be used to help individuals with autism understand and improve their social skills. Indeed, if you're working with an autistic person who is really into anime, using scenarios from anime can be very helpful in helping those students understand social skills and can really enhance social skills instruction. So to talk about social skills strategies and teaching moments from the anime series Pokemon and the anime-inspired series Miraculous Ladybug, I shall now turn the floor to Hailey Buxton.
Thank you, James. Anyway, so if you have seen the Pokemon series, you know Ash Ketchum's friend Brock, right? Well, there's this popular running gag in the series where he flirts with every pretty girl he comes across. That, in real life, is not appropriate, unless you get to know them first. So yeah, basically, Brock flirts with every pretty girl he sees and is dragged away by the ear by either Misty or Max or jabbed in the back by his Krogunk and dragged off. Now, another example, something similar, is in the show Miraculous Ladybug. You see, when Marinette and Adrian are in their superhero alter egos, Ladybug and Cat Noir has a huge crush on Ladybug and loves to get her attention, loves to flirt with her. We're going to reenact such a scene right now. I thought cats always landed on their feet.
Why, thanks, my Ladybug, but I had it covered.
No time for your childish charm, Cat Noir. You're welcome.
So this right now is a quick example of a scenario from the anime-inspired series Miraculous Ladybug. In this scene, Cat Noir, who is madly in love with Ladybug and doesn't always behave appropriately around Ladybug when he should, did not consent and started to try to hold Ladybug's hand, which made Ladybug feel uncomfortable. And here's an example of, in this case, something you can use to teach people with autism the importance of consent and the fact that it's not always appropriate to invade people's personal space.
Now, another example of social strategies in Miraculous Ladybug there's a character who is a serial liar, who loves to make the lives of people who don't believe her lies miserable. One prime target being Marinette. So anyway, very few people with autism are like this, but it is important to teach people not to lie and to be honest, and to not ruin the lives of others when confronted with your lies.
Thank you, Hailey. Now, one other related social strategy that anime can be utilized for is not just social skills or teaching social skills, but also helping individuals with autism develop a greater theory of mind about themselves and other individuals. Now, for most of us who have been at autism conferences, and for most of us who've been a part of the autism community, you probably know the term theory of mind before. It was a term that was originally created by Dr. Simon Baron-Cohen, in which he, during his research, concluded that many people with autism lack a theory of mind towards other people. And although whether or not this is the case has been debated many times, it would not be a mistake to say that there are some people with autism who sometimes do have a hard time having a theory of mind towards other people. They sometimes struggle understanding different points of view, but they also sometimes struggle with understanding themselves. And one thing I can tell you is, through my interest of anime, I've been able to develop a greater understanding about myself, and I've been able sometimes to develop a greater theory of mind towards other people. And there are key scenarios in anime that I watched through various stages of my life that helped me develop a greater theory of mind. So in this next section of the presentation, Hailey and I are going to be talking about different scenes in anime that helped us understand ourselves better and also understand others better. Now, there was a time when I was a kid with autism when I was very punctual. I had to get up by a certain time. If something was supposed to happen at noon, it better happen at noon or I was going to have a meltdown. And if I woke up too late or I missed something, I'd get really upset. In Pokemon, on the very first episode that was shown here in America, there's this classic scene where Ash Ketchum, the main character of Pokemon, he oversleeps on the day he's able to pick his first Pokemon. It was going to be either a Squirtle, a Bulbasaur, or a Charmander. But he overslept, and he was really upset when he didn't wake up on time. And I can tell you, there was a time when I was a kid, I was so punctual and needed so much structure. If I overslept, I would have a meltdown. Especially if I missed something I really wanted. Or missed out on something. But, as a result, that's what happens to Ash. He oversleeps, and then he gets to Professor Oak's lab, where Professor Oak is handing out these first Pokemon to aspiring Pokemon trainers, and Ash ends up realizing he can't get a Squirtle, a Bulbasaur, or a Charmander.
All three have been taken.
Instead, he's stuck with Pikachu. And that sets the frame for a lot of adventures that happen throughout the rest of the anime. Later on in Pokemon, during the first ever Pokemon movie, there's a really classic scene that also is very relatable to a common experience that people with autism have. Who here knows of that person with autism who has a hard time dealing with a subject in school that they aren't interested in or have a hard time completing their homework, but if they're doing something they're interested in, they can spend hours doing it. Well, in the first movie, there's this really amazing scene where Ash is really tired. He claims he's too weak to do a bunch of work he's supposed to do. And then suddenly, a Pokemon trainer comes up and wants to battle him. And suddenly, Ash jumps into action after being tired. And shortly afterwards is out battling with this trainer. And Misty
and Brock make fun of him for it.
They do. In fact, Misty says, Ash, you said you were too weak to work. And Ash goes, a Pokemon battle isn't work. And in all honesty, for many people with autism, something they like really isn't work. So, in these two examples, whether you're a parent of a child with autism or a teacher, you can use examples like this and others in anime to help people with autism understand themselves. You can ask them questions. Hey, is this how you feel when you oversleep? Is this how you feel when you have to do something you don't want to do? And then you can use other scenes, like some other examples I'm going to demonstrate, to help people with autism understand how others are feeling. Now, Hailey already mentioned one example. The constant scenes in Pokemon where Brock is behaving inappropriately towards many female characters, especially the Officer Jennies.
And the Nurse Joys.
And you could say, hey, how does that make Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy feel when Brock's behaving inappropriately towards them?
Well, very few of the ladies that Brock flirted with actually liked him back. One such being the Frontier Brain Pike Queen Lucy. But right now we're focusing on how the majority of them felt, such as the Nurse Joys and the Officer Jennies.
And amazingly, there's this really classic scene where Brock actually can tell the difference between the different Officer Jennies in the different towns within the Pokemon universe, and notices things so minute in detail that pretty much only people with autism who paid attention to that detail probably would have noticed. Now, in other animes, there is a classic anime known as My Hero Academia. And in that anime, the main character lives in a world where everyone is a superhero. Most people in this world have superpowers, but he doesn't. And it's hard for him to live in this world where he's expected to have superpowers.
And not having them is taboo.
And his experiences parallel the experiences that a lot of autistic people go through in our world. Many autistic people feel inferior. They feel like they're not good enough to be able to function in a world with a non-autistic majority. But at the same time, the main character in My Hero Academia, because of those misunderstandings, sometimes acts in ways that upsets other characters in the show without him knowing. And in many of those scenes, he has to learn how to properly interact with the other superheroes, even though he's not a superhero himself. And so those scenes in My Hero Academia can be useful in helping people with autism understand, hey, why do you think the other superheroes are feeling this way? And how can you use this to understand sometimes the importance of being able to properly behave in ways with other non-autistic people, even when you're autistic yourself. And the fact that even though you may feel inferior to other non-autistic people, sometimes you still have to interact with them. And also sometimes too, some of those people may not hate you and may want to be your friend. And indeed, in My Hero Academia, the main character does end up befriending some of the superheroes within that world. Now, to talk about various animes that related to her, I shall turn the floor to Hailey Buxton.
Well, one such example that I relate to is in Miraculous Ladybug. Marinette is madly in love with Adrian, and she can barely speak to him without messing up, jumbling her words, stuttering like, "Hey, oh my God, hello, I'm Adrian. I'm wanted to give you a disguise. Surprise," and all that stuff. Some people with autism go through what Marinette is going through. They don't know how to navigate romantic relationships and friendships. I'm kind of that way myself, so that's why I relate to that scene. And another, this is very important, the main bad guy, Hawkmoth, takes advantage of people with disabilities when they're at their most vulnerable, like when they're sad, angry, or scared, and he pretends to be their friend when he isn't. And it's scarily true that there are people out there that would use those with autism dealing with negative emotions for their own gain. So yeah.
Thank you, Hailey. And as Hailey and I have shown, anime is a great medium to teach social skills. It's a great medium to help people with autism understand themselves and other people. But it is also a great medium too to help people with autism make social connections and make friends with others as well. Indeed, some of my best friends I have made as an adult with autism emerged because of a shared interest in anime. Now, for some of you who are not part of the anime community, you're probably wondering, what exactly is anime? I know you've heard Hailey and I talk about anime now for a little over a half hour, and you've heard us talk about how anime can help people with autism improve their social functioning. But for those of you who are not part of the anime community, you're probably wondering, okay, what is anime? Now, if you were to go to an anime convention, you'd hear people in presentations debate this decision and debate the definition of anime from one definition to another. But it is usually agreed on by people within the anime community that anime refers to animation from Japan that is drawn in a specific art form. Now, others consider all forms of animation in Japan to be anime, but it is almost universally agreed on that anime has to be from Japan. If something is considered anime, it's from Japan. Now, that doesn't mean that there are many popular TV series and many popular videos that are animated in the anime style that are not from Japan. In fact, there are. But in many cases, those series are called anime-influenced or anime-inspired. So, an example of something that almost everyone would agree constitutes anime is Pokemon. Miraculous Ladybug, although it is drawn with many elements of the anime art form and is very popular among anime fans, is not entirely from Japan. It's actually the product of a collaboration between a French animation studio and a Japanese animation studio. But because it's mostly made in France and is mostly French in origin, Miraculous Ladybug would be considered anime-inspired or anime-influenced. And then there are shows that are not anime or are not anime-inspired or anime-influenced, but have fandoms that are considered to be a related fandom that is welcomed by the anime fan community. A popular example is the My Little Pony fan community. Although My Little Pony is neither anime nor is it anime-inspired, it's a American-made animated TV show that was based on the My Little Pony toys made about 20, 30 years ago. Many My Little Pony fans come to anime conventions, and many anime fans also go to My Little Pony conventions. There are routinely people who come to anime conventions who cosplay as the ponies from My Little Pony. Now, I mentioned earlier about how working at anime conventions helped me understand the origins of many unspoken social rules. I'm now going to give an example of that. See, one of the things that a lot of professionals and a lot of teachers don't always understand is you can teach a social rule to an autistic person, and they may understand it, but they may understand it very robotically. They may just see it as a generic rule that they know they have to follow so as not to upset other people. But they don't always understand why they have to follow that rule. They don't always understand that, if you break that social rule, you might make a lot of people upset. And one of the common reasons why autistic people struggle to understand the reason behind those rules is because many autistic people don't feel uncomfortable when they engage in those inappropriate behaviors. Other people are uncomfortable around them. Yeah, other people genuinely do feel uncomfortable, but they don't. And at anime conventions, there are things that people are expected to do that are distinct to that community. That if you don't do them, you're going to make people uncomfortable that are different than other social settings. And when I learned about those social rules, and I realized, hey, these aren't just random robotic rules. If I don't follow them, I'm going to upset people. Then a light bulb came in. Hey, wait a minute here. What if that's the reason why I have to follow other rules and other settings? And that led me to conclude something that many teachers throughout my life had struggled to help me understand. What most non-autistic people call inappropriate rules or inappropriate behavior. What most non-autistic people call unspoken social rules, they are really the rules to make sure that people feel comfortable in a social setting. So here's an example. It's pretty much a common rule, I'm sure you've been told this, that if you meet an adult, you don't usually ask them their age, right?
Especially if it's a woman.
But I can tell you something. When I'm at an anime convention and I meet someone, whether or not they're male or female, I always ask them their age. I'm actually expected to.
Oh, all right then.
You know why? Because at an anime convention, because a large part of anime conventions are about making friends, anime conventions don't always have as much of a rule of, don't talk to strangers. Because at anime conventions, people can be total strangers and then be best friends at the end of the convention. But in order to make that work, you have to know the age of the person you're trying to become friends with. If you're a legal adult and they're under 18, that might not be someone you might want to become friends with. Or if you are, then you also probably want to get to know their parents first too. And so you have to know how old they are to know how to behave with them. If they're an adult, there's things that you can do with that adult, like attend adult events that are only for people who are 18 and over, that you can't do with someone who is under 18. And so, because those rules have to be followed, it is assumed that I want to get to know somebody, I've got to ask them their age. Because I need to know, okay, if I want to become friends with this person, is it safe? Is it someone that I can become friends with? And if it is, what are the rules I have to follow to make sure that that friendship is considered okay by the standards of the anime community and by the person's family, if necessary? So, to conclude, I hope everyone here learned something today about the social teaching strategies for individuals with autism from the anime community.
I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you consider everything that we discussed in this video as learning opportunities for those on the autism spectrum.
Hailey will now be performing one of her favorite songs from the anime community, the theme from Miraculous Ladybug.
In the daytime, I'm Marinette, just a normal girl with a normal life. But there's something about me that no one knows yet, 'cause I have a secret. Miraculous, simply the best, up to the test when things go wrong. Miraculous, the luckiest, the power of love always so strong. Miraculous.
And I will now play on my recorder the theme song from another popular anime within the anime community, Sailor Moon. Thank you.
Thank you.